I think the headline of this episode is going to be Taylor Swift is not my generation. That's
No,
funny.
don't. You know how I am. I get very anal about my homework. And the first thing on my paper here, it says understanding more the meaning of life.
But I was hoping one of them would be about you, because I think that is really something that comes out of a show like this.
I get joy from my family. But I also get joy from my dogs. My dogs are insane.
All right, so here we are celebrating episode 100. So let's dig into that. How does it feel?
It's incredible. It's a huge milestone for the show. We've been going for 5 years. Of course, we haven't had 100 guests, but what we've had 100 different standalone episodes. That might be guests. It might be solo episodes with me. It might be you and I, Chirag, having our biannual chats where we catch up on what's been happening, looking ahead as well. So it's everything that we've been putting out for 5 years. So it's a huge milestone for us.
Yeah, and it's obviously I've been having a few opportunities to now reflect on, how actually we started. So I was just kind of going back to that. Obviously, we had a sort of run-up period, right, during which we were kind of figuring out concept and figuring out a few things. But I was specifically thinking about when we launched. So, our first couple of episodes, so it was Ahmed Elfi and Jalal and Dahlia. And just getting that out there, so we got an Apple feature as soon as we went out the door. We obviously continued to we got an Apple recommendation at the end of the year as well as a show to watch out for. But it was just interesting. One, that feels like a very long time ago, right? Like it feels like it's been a while. But it also, there's been so much evolution to the show in every layer of the show since then, right?
I think also, the ecosystem has changed, more importantly.
Absolutely.
The ecosystem, when we started out, we were pioneers in this space. Be it, in terms of format, in terms of the kind of show we were, the region was still so unaware of what podcasts were. I remember when you and I were having meetings with marketing teams to try and get sponsors, no one knew what a podcast was. And we were spending a lot of our time explaining the benefit of a podcast. And now, just looking at Egypt on its own, for example, the ecosystem has completely changed. That's happened, I think, really in the last couple of years. It's just exploded as a medium. Of course, the majority are in Arabic because that's the majority's, the average, most people speak Arabic and English is a secondary language. But there's been a massive explosion just in the field, and it's amazing. And it's fantastic for us because the more people out there, the better. The more competition we have, the better. We become better. Everyone else becomes better. And it just makes it a more interesting environment to work in generally. When people know what it is you're doing, they understand it more, and they appreciate it more. We were working very much at the beginning in a vacuum, Chirag, to a large extent, you and I. It felt kind of lonely, actually. Whereas now, when you say podcast to anyone, they understand, they know what it is. I think also the fact that from the very beginning, we were always a regional show. That never changed. That was always part of the setup from the very beginning. And I think that has been one of our strengths. And for us and for me, another strength is that we are in English. We differentiate ourselves from a lot of other people. But we're also able to bring a different kind of voice out of the region and from the region. We can disseminate globally in a way that a lot of other podcasts can't.
I've always maintained that there's space for both kinds of shows. In fact, there's space for lots of kinds of shows, but just language-wise, I think there's space for both, and ample space for it.
The important thing as well, I think, for us is we've adapted with when technology has moved forward, we've moved forward with it. So obviously we started out as an audio product, and that was how podcasts were consumed when we began. But one of your very smart decisions on behalf of the show that we did from the very, very beginning was to record video. So we've been recording video from day one.
Yeah.
And then there was a shift on a global level whereby podcasting became a video first format. And we were able quickly to jump on that bandwagon, start the YouTube channel. We had all the back catalog already filmed that we were using purely on social media. And so we went back and cut them as proper videos. In some cases, the more recent videos, they're fully available on YouTube. The older episodes, we've done them as longer clips.
Yeah.
But then what we did as well simultaneously was we quickly subtitled everything. So if you're not an English speaker, they're all available in any language on YouTube. But we've also added Arabic subtitles specifically to be able to serve our region more fully.
So one of the things I wanted to do with you, obviously, as we're doing this look back, which was, as you called it yesterday, a little bit of homework, which is to look back at the last 5 years. I mean, essentially from episode 1, and I thought it would be interesting to just get your highlights, right? I mean, some of the sort of standout moments. I know it's hard to pick. I think we've had a lot. I know when we do our wrap up episodes as well, we almost have a highlight, every season and every year. But as 100 episodes call for it. Yeah, I think it'll be fun to like kind of look at some of the highlights that you've had since the show started.
Okay, so I took my assignment very seriously that you gave me, and I began this a few days ago because I don't like to do things in one shot. I like to think about them, so I'd have a paper and I'd like jot things down and then I'd come back to it. But I think the first thing that really came to my mind immediately was just, by doing this process and by reaching out to people that I'm interested in meeting, I've just met incredible people. And that process has just been really organic. So a lot of the time it's been word of mouth. It's been people paying it forward. So I'll
Yeah.
have a guest on the show and they will just organically recommend someone else for the next originally we were in season, so at the time it was for the next season. Or I will ask them, something will come up in conversation and they will mention that they know someone in particular who I think would be a good fit. And
Yeah.
always guests have been very happy to make those introductions. There's never been anyone who said no. And it's been that I've been able to meet these incredible people and really showcase the best our region has to offer. And that is probably a very obvious sort of first point to make, but it's an important point because, you know, these are people at the top of their game. We have a very high caliber of guest and they're willing to share their stories. And that's not everybody who's willing to do that, you know. Just to give you an example, I had a call 2 days ago with a potential guest that an ex-guest introduced me
Mhm.
to. And we had a really nice conversation and he was really comfortable. And then at the end of it, he said, listen, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do this interview. He said, I wanted to meet you. I wanted us to have a chat and I'm really comfortable with you. And I know that when I am ready to do something more public,
Mhm.
then you are the person I'm going to call. But right now, for me, is not the time. And I thought that was incredibly honest. And I was obviously very respectful of that. And I said, that's fine. Of course, that's fine.
Yeah.
I talk to people at all points during the year. There's no set time for any of these interviews. So I said to him, listen, let's touch base in a year. He said, that's great. I have to work through a few things in my head about how I want to approach them, how I want to talk about them. And I said, that's fine. Let's chat again in a year. And he said, and I said to him, and I said jokingly, I said, just don't go to anyone else. Make sure you come back to me.
Yeah.
So, so things like that, it's just interesting that that's part of the process.
I will highlight that I think it was great that we had this sort of core point on the show, which automatically makes people reflect, and I think that that's important. I think that almost a statement like that he made, which is wonderful and great that it's honest, also comes out of that reflection. So it's wonderful that I guess are willing to
Exactly.
reflect, right?
And he was really, really honest with his life journey with me. And he
Yeah.
said, listen, and we touched a lot, we touched on a few quite taboo subjects for the region. And he said, listen, I am going to talk about these things, but just not yet. And I was like, fine,
Which is great. Yeah.
when you're ready, let me know.
Yeah, and I think we've seen over time, how the guests, as they keep sharing, we sort of touch on these interesting topics. So sometimes they're just interesting thought exercises, right? Whether you look at AI or technology and culture, and there's
Yeah.
so many spaces like that. But then also these vulnerable learning moments that come out of these conversations, and both you and the guest are happy to just talk through that, work through that, actually understand and give that. So I think that is also, as you're saying, right, as you've had these conversations, as you're meeting these interesting people, obviously as the show is also being heard, it's creating this little core around it that I think is quite nice. Yeah,
So my next kind of like takeaway about this show, and I've written this down. So I have you know how I am. I get very anal about my
yeah,
homework. So I have this next point, and the first thing on my paper here, it says understanding more the meaning of life. And I know it sounds really grand and very sort of cliche, but what it means for me is that it boils down to just a few important points. One is connection, one is family, and one is health. And if you have those three elements, everything else is window dressing. So everything else are just cherries on the cake, extras, lovely to have, but not essential points of your life. Connection is really important, and I think as we age, this connection issue becomes more and more important. And I think that this is also something that we pick up on post COVID.
Mhm.
COVID
Absolutely.
was such a watershed in all our lives, and this issue of connection is so important. And it's no longer about quantity; it's about quality.
Yeah,
If you can count yourself lucky enough to have 10 good friends, then you're a very rich person. And I think it's those kinds of things that, at the end of the day, have come out in our conversations. This is what really matters in life. Family, of course, is everyone's bedrock. And when we've often talked with guests and we've come to that lightning round, family is always there somewhere.
yeah,
Um, or, family always comes first in some part of our conversation. And of course, health. Health is everyone's foundation anyway. And without that, nothing else matters. So, everything else on top of that, whether it's fame, whether it's wealth, whether it's lifestyle, all of that are extras. Of course, they're nice to have, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So that was something that kind of I thought of quite deeply. And I think that that comes out in nearly every single episode.
when you have the ability to look back at 100 episodes, 80 something guests, and as a result 80 something conversations, I think that is it's great that we can kind of see this thread now coming out, right? We've always done this sort of reflection of a thread across a season, a thread across a few people, a thread across a topic, but there are some things that are universal. I think it's as someone that obviously listens to every episode, it's something I keep hearing as well, right? You'll hear not just in terms of guests answering those questions, but even when you look at some of the pivots, it's
Yeah,
always that sort of there's a person who had this kind of impact. Often it's a family member, but maybe not necessarily immediate family always, or a close friend, and those kind of things. It's incredible how those things absolutely impact you, right? And then when we
yeah,
look at today's world where there's so much disconnection, I mean, it's something I'm finding as well, right? Like I'm actually switching off my phone and putting my phone away and not trying to sort of get enveloped in that digital world and just be out
yeah,
and
yeah.
do that. So
In
that's
real life.
wonderful. Yeah, in real
Absolutely.
life, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, what's third?
Yeah. So the other thing I think for me that really struck me is that there's no such thing as a right way to live. The theme of our show is very much about people's journeys, people's paths, and the choices we make in life. And it made me think about whether our journeys are foretold. Is it written? Is it destiny? Or do we have agency as people? How much is shaped by destiny and how much is shaped by our own choices and decisions? And I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. I don't think anyone has an answer. I think that most of us go through life with a lot of luck. We react to circumstances. We're faced with decisions and choices, and we make the best decision we can, giving the
Mhm.
information we have. Um, are we changing our destiny by these decisions? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's these are the questions that always come out in our episodes. And, you know, there are people who have very clear paths in life and know what they want to do from a very young age. And we've had those guests. And it might be a doctor, Magdi Aoub, for example, from the age of 8, he knew he wanted to be a doctor. And he did that. He was single-minded and he just did it.
Dr. Nadine was the same, right? Like knew from when she was
Yes,
a teenager, like
absolutely.
that this is what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Yep, Nadine Hashesh Haram. And then you have other people who fall into a path, or they've taken a much more meandering journey. They've ended in something. They've ended working in a field that they love, but it took them a while to get there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's circumstance, right? Circumstances drop you into a situation, you discover something you
Exactly.
love, right? Like
Exactly. So that was an interesting question for me, and it's something that comes up almost in every episode.
yeah.
I don't have an answer. It's just an observation. We've all had these. We all have these. We're all in these situations, and I don't know. It makes for interesting conversations, and it makes for a very introspective reflection from the guest. And most people don't think about these things in their daily life. So our little interview show allows people to just stop and think about this a little bit, and it's never a bad thing to stop and think about a little bit where your life is going, how it's going. So it's just an observation for me.
That's fascinating. I mean, I feel like maybe I should have said this earlier that like I didn't know what your highlights were going to be, right? So we discussed that you would have them, but we kept it
Yeah.
kind of natural here. So it is fascinating to me that because this is something I have spent a lot of time thinking about, like all through life. I mean, in the last 10 years in particular, let's say, where you're kind of trying to find this understanding. I've reached this point now where I feel like actually there isn't as you said, there isn't, it's not this or this, there's an amalgamation of many things that happens, all of which makes life, right? And makes life beautiful and interesting and wonderful. And so I find that in addition to the reflection, just being in the moment is what always helps. And I feel like that's something I've heard a lot of guests come to that, and I've heard from a lot of guests as well. And I think one of the reasons why some of these conversations are so powerful and impactful is because the guest and you are willing to be in that moment, being there with each other. So it goes back to your point of connection as well. And I think that that's what makes things just nice and interesting, and
Yeah.
why conversations can
Yeah.
be so powerful.
I agree. My next point is more about me, actually. And so I've realized doing these episodes, I hadn't realized that I am quite empathetic. And it's not something that I had identified in myself before. And I think it's a product of me having been sick at a young age. Um, Most of the audience who follow us regularly know that I had cancer when I was 34. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was diagnosed after my second son was born, 7 weeks after he was born. And I think that that journey and that experience um, marked me in ways that I'm still discovering about
Mhm.
myself. It's been nearly 18 years, but I still feel that that is a story that's revealing itself to me, and its impact on me is revealing itself to me still. And I'm now seeing, I know this sounds a bit weird, but I'm now seeing the positives of having had that experience.
Right.
Which is one of them is empathy. And I always look at my guests and I put myself in their shoes. And that's always something I do. And I think it's a conscious thing. So I always try and imagine myself, how would I be reacting if I was doing what they're doing, or saying what they're saying? Do I see their point of view? And of course you always see their point of view. Because being an interviewer means you listen well and you try and imagine what they're going through. And I think the end result from all that is you just want to be kind, and you never know what other people are going through. What people show on the outward um, facade is how they want to be seen by people, but you just never know what their challenges are. And I think if you can be kind, then that is an incredibly important tool. And you pray that people are kind to you in return.
Yeah. I mean, that's wonderful. I will say that when I suggested this assignment to look back at certain things, I was hoping that this is one of the things that you would say, right? Not the specific the empathy bit, but I was hoping one of them would be about you, because I think that that is really something that comes out of a show like this, or any show, right? Because in addition to expanding topics and expanding all the other things, you start discovering stuff about yourself, and so I was hoping that that would be one of the things that comes out of it, because I think that that's, I mean, I just reflected a few minutes ago when you were at your, the previous point about destiny, about how it has impacted me and how I feel like as I listen to these conversations, what happens. So that's great. I'm happy to hear that. That's fascinating,
Yeah,
and I hope that I'm sure there is more still to uncover, which I think is the beauty of it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. My last point is something that I think reflects the roller coaster of our 5 years. So we've, you and I, we craft this together. We began with a concept, and as we said at the beginning, we were one of the first to take this, a podcast seriously and not as a hobby. And it became, it's a business for us.
absolutely.
And I think that with time, we chased a lot of sort of mirages, if you like. So we were running after followers on socials. We were running after likes. We were like obsessing about certain statistics at various points of the last 5 years. And for me now, I'm at a stage where I think we have a great show. I think we have a niche show.
Mhm.
We are a niche podcast. It's not a mass product. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the caliber of our work. Um, and I'm much more about quality rather than quantity at this stage. I think people have come to our show and seen for themselves the caliber of our guests, the caliber of our conversations. And we are lucky enough that we have a following. We have repeat viewers, repeat listeners. And I've come across people in real life, in my day-to-day life, who come up to me and have said, "I love your show. I follow it. I love that guest you had from I don't know what year." And people I have no idea who, I've never come across them before. And so we are impacting people. And I'm happy with that. I don't want to be chasing, numbers and all that. We are who we are, and we have a following. We are niche, but we are having an impact, and that matters a lot for me.
I don't think we could have gotten to 100 episodes if we didn't have sort of this kind of goal in mind of what it is that we were trying to create. I mean, of course, there's the business side of things, and of course, we'll keep looking at things and looking at different strategies, and we've tried a lot of stuff there. But I think if we keep that sort of eye on that goal, and I think that's what makes it fun as well for you and me when we work together, right? Because we kind of keep going back to that, like, oh my God, there was an impactful conversation. I mean, you send me a message where, when you're done with a guest, and you kind of always have this like, oh, this was a wonderful conversation, oh, this was great, or that was great. And
Or
I think,
remember to pull this out when you're
yeah, yeah,
editing
because
or
because
whatever.
you have those
Yeah,
impact moments like that happen in person, happen in the moment. And
yeah,
I think it's always it is very important to keep remembering that, right? Because it's very easy, as you said, to kind of just chase something that you can see on as a number, and they say, why is that number not getting bigger sometimes, right? Or why is
yeah,
that,
yeah,
there is something to impact. I think there's something to just being able to tell these stories, right? And this point that you made earlier, there isn't one there isn't just one right way to do anything. Forget living life, like just to do anything. There's multiple paths, multiple approaches. One of the things we're able to showcase with this variety of guests is that, right? That
yeah.
look, here's someone who took one path and this is what happened. And then, like 6 months later, there'll be someone who is maybe same industry, same upbringing, but completely different journey, still and I think
Sure.
finding those little moments, I think for me that's what has impact.
The final point I want to make, which is not, nothing to do with the actual, meat and potatoes, if you like, of what we're doing, which is just our sponsor. Right now, we have one sponsor who are EFG. who have been really phenomenal with us. And they have been with us almost from the very beginning. And we are a very good match in terms of the caliber of guests suits their messaging and their positioning. And, when we began, having a sponsor was a really, really big deal. And they were taking a leap of faith because this was a medium that was not understood. But they got it. They understood that this was a meeting of minds, and
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
was about,
Yeah.
you know, talking to a wider kind of lifestyle choice. And that's an important thing to note after 100 episodes is that, we're very lucky to have them. And I just wanted to acknowledge that as well.
Well, we're not done. So yeah,
Lightning
so we've
round.
got
Oh my
we've got
God.
this pending lightning round that that you've been needing to do. We'll start with one of your favorites, which is teamwork or individual pursuits.
Actually, I like both. I think there's a place for each thing. Individual work for me would be when I'm researching a guest, for example, digging into interviews they've done, videos they've recorded interviews they've done. That's a really fun part of the job for me, because I really get to get into their psyche and understand how they're approaching their work, and so on. So that's a fun part of the job for me. And then crafting the parameters of the interview. That's the sort of thing I do on my own. I really enjoy that, but I really also enjoy the teamwork. And I specifically enjoy working with you and the social media team because we're constantly trying to find ways of engaging with our audience. And now that we've been going for 5 years, we're trying to leverage the incredible conversations that we've had. We're trying to leverage them in new ways. We've so far this year have launched 2 new segments. We have Encore, where we go back and visit with older guests and see what they've been up to. Our other amazing new segment, which you pioneered, Chirag, is Double Take. And here we have a theme. That's a recurring theme that we've noticed coming up in many different conversations. So we'll go back and revisit some of our old conversations and just highlight 2 guests on a particular theme. So we've done one that just out recently on AI with 4 amazing guests that have been on the show. We've had Omar Isahi, Rami Youssef, Mo Gaudat, and Tariq Noor, all discussing in their own conversations that I've had with them, the subject of AI has come up. So we've taken those segments and created this new, we've taken those clips and created this new segment called Double Take. And I'm really excited about it because it allows us to showcase topics that are hot and that people are discussing, and to remind people that these particular guests have spoken about those issues. So that's a really
Yeah,
fun
and I think it
segment.
gives us a chance to, which we like to say, like connect the dots, right? So sometimes you have, even when we did this, right? Like, so
Exactly.
Tariq Noor asked some of those philosophical questions, Mogordat was able to answer some of them, and they happened in separate conversations and over time. But it's interesting to kind of piece together and say, well, based on this, here's what we think, some of the outcomes might be. I will sort of say that every time someone has tried to answer both for this question, you've always interrupted them saying, sorry, you have to pick one. So I'm not going to make you do that, but I am going to say that that's what you normally tell guests.
Oh, I have to pick one, do I?
Well, that's what you make the guest do. So I feel like maybe you should.
If I have to pick one, I will go for teamwork. And you know that that's because of the connection again.
Okay, so next one is phone call or voice notes.
Ooh, phone call or voice note. It depends very much on who it is. I think if I have to really think about it, I would say phone call.
So audio or video.
So I got really comfortable with audio for a really, really long time, and I
Right.
could sit there in my sweats and do like recordings, and no one would know what I looked like. And so there was a huge comfort factor in that
Yeah.
for a really long time. And then, of course, everything switched to video. And I was extremely uncomfortable at the beginning doing video to camera pieces. And I know that I frustrated the social media team for a very long time because I kept wanting to defer back to audio.
Yeah.
But now I've become much more comfortable. I'm still doing it in my own way. So it's a little bit more organized rather than off the cuff, which I know that social media likes. I'm not yet very comfortable doing that. Maybe that will come. So it's a work in progress, Chirag.
Okay. What is one piece of technology you cannot do without?
Aha! TikTok.
Oh wow, that is not. I was not expecting that.
So again, this is a really funny story because I think it was like 18 months ago or 2 years ago, you and me and the social media team
Yeah,
were discussing what should be the next kind of platform that we need to get into. And we ended up talking about TikTok, and I said, "Oh, I've never been on it. I've no idea what it's like." And so Amara, who's in charge of our account, and Radir, both of them said, "You need to get on TikTok. Just go in, have a little look around, and then you'll see. Tell me what you think, and we'll migrate there. We'll start putting our
yeah.
videos there." So I did that, and I spent 2 weeks in a rabbit hole of TikTok, and now this is how I relax. I used to relax by reading. I used to relax by doing other things. And now it's just like wall to wall TikTok. And I bombard my friends with stupid videos. I've got like a couple of friends groups and they're being really polite with me. They're not mentioning my addiction. They're not talking about it. They're just not even commenting on them. My family have just stopped talking to me when I send them videos. And
That's funny. This in and of itself is going to become a video. By the way, this is hilarious.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But the interesting thing is that it's so useful as well as a research tool. I'm planning a trip with my family in December. So I've gone into a rabbit hole on this particular country trying to discover more and more about what we can do. And it's actually super useful. So it's not just, silly. There is a use to it too.
That's yeah. I don't
Actually, Chirag, this can be a clip and it should go on TikTok.
100%.
We can launch our TikTok strategy with this.
We are so going to do that. Yeah, I'll just ask my question and then you just launch in this like I heart TikTok like sign. So next question is, what is one language you wish you could speak?
I'd like to learn Arabic better than I know it. I've always had a very weak grasp of Arabic. So when I was raised outside of Egypt, like a lot of the viewers know, in my home, we spoke French and English. So I'm bilingual in French and English. Arabic was a third language for me, and embarrassingly so. And even though I grew up in Saudi, we were very much in an expat, foreign community. And then when I moved to the UK at the age of 12, whatever Arabic I had was quickly forgotten. Um, my Arabic improved a lot when I met my husband, and he was very smart because he said to me, "I'm only going to speak to you in Arabic." And so my spoken Arabic became much stronger. And of course, living in Egypt for the last 25 years, I use it obviously on a daily basis.
Right.
But I'm embarrassed to say I don't read it. I can read rudimentary and on a rudimentary level. I can write on a rudimentary level, but it is a struggle and it's time consuming and it does not come naturally to me. And it's a very weak spot for me. And it's something that I've always had a block with. So I tried again as an adult to take lessons and I've just found it really hard. And it's something that I deeply regret not having fully grasped properly.
Okay. If you could eat one food for like forever or all the time, sorry, what would it be?
Cheese. It's my favorite thing in the world. And it's the worst thing for me, but I just love cheese.
Okay. Morning rituals or late night musings?
So I guess I'll go with morning rituals because I wake up very early and I've been doing that since my children were very young to get them ready for school. And it just became ingrained.
Yeah.
So I'm very much a morning person. So I'm always up early. And even though I have one son in university now, one son in his last year who shouldn't need my help getting out of bed, but still does, embarrassingly so. And I'm putting my pointing my finger at him directly. Um, I do still wake up with him, and I use that time actually to do a lot of reading. That's my quiet time.
Okay. Favorite activity?
So I was thinking about that because I knew it would come up because it's on one of our standard lightning round questions. I think my favorite activity, and it has been for many years, is swimming. For me, I don't do any meditation like a lot of people do. That for me is very much my Zen time and my moment of being completely cocooned in another world. Um, and I really enjoy swimming for the physical benefits as well. But it's really about that alone time. If I can't do a swim, then the gym also has that function,
Right.
but it's less restful. It gives you the same endorphins at the end, but
Yeah.
it's less restful as a process. The process itself of swimming is very therapeutic for me.
Okay. Well, obviously, least favorite activity.
So again, I thought of this and I've come to the conclusion that my least favorite activity is managing people. And it's something that I really don't enjoy. I've done it in the past. I worked in a PR firm in Cairo at one point, and I had to manage a team of account executives. And I really, really don't like it. I don't like being a boss. I don't like having to tell people what to do, and then having them push back and say, "Oh, well, I can't," or "I'm not. I'm sick. I'm not coming in," and having to, yeah, that really, it drains me. It drains my energy. I don't want to be worrying about that kind of thing. I don't want to be spending my time managing other people. That's definitely something that I did as a younger person. I don't want to do anymore.
A podcast episode you want everybody to listen to.
Oh, what a great question. The one of our show, you mean?
It doesn't have to be. I kept it open because I didn't want to necessarily pick out a guest, but
Huh. I mean, I don't have an episode from other shows that stand out over time.
okay,
Um, but I mean, I can mention a podcast show I really like.
sure.
So the one I really like and I've been listening to more and more is called Empire, which is a history show, but it's a history show that is kind of looking away from the traditional way of interpreting history. Um, and it's called Empire because I think it's basically looking at a lot of things to do with the British Empire, but in a non-colonial way, if you understand my point.
Yeah.
So it's by two hosts. One is called William Dalrymple. I don't remember the name of the female host. She's also British, but she's of Indian origin. And their entire foundation of their show is to deconstruct the British Empire. And so they look at specific points in history that or places in history in around the world that were impacted by Britain, and to go back and look at it from a much more indigenous point of view.
Okay, so following on from that, is there a What I Did Next episode that you want everybody to listen to?
So that's a really great question. And I'll give you two episodes
Okay.
for very different reasons. And this is a question I'm very often asked by friends and people who meet me for the first time or whatever, and they want to know more about the show. And they
Right.
always ask me, "What's your favorite episode?" And it's a really hard question to answer. And I just want to caveat this before I give you the two episodes that really stand out for me, because each episode has something to offer and each guest has something to offer. And they've taught me, obviously, each guest has taught me something. But if I have to give you two that stand out, one is from our first season.
Okay.
And it's someone who's not known to the general public. She's not a celebrity. She is not on anyone's radar. She's a childhood friend. Her name is Sarah Trudd. I'm not going to tell you why it's my favorite episode. I'm not going to go drill down into the episode, but she was extremely open with a very, very taboo subject that the Middle East just doesn't talk about. It's very common around the world. It's not common here. She's from a Lebanese. She's from Lebanon, and she just spoke very honestly about something in her life, and I was so appreciative of that. And that for me was one of my favorite episodes because it was so real. And she's not a public figure, and she just opened up her life, and it was just for me a really, really special episode. So I always mention her when I talk to friends. The other episode that for me really, really moved me and I thought was incredibly special was the one with Sir Meg Yaoub.
Okay.
And for me, it was an incredibly special episode for a few reasons. Firstly, um, the obviously most people know who he is. His life work is completely groundbreaking. He has impacted so many lives. He is so selfless in every ounce of his body. He is selfless. He's impacted people in the UK, in the Caribbean, in Africa, not to mention Egypt, what he's done. Um, he is, in my mind, saint like, actually. He's really given his life to what he's doing. I had been in touch, I had been trying to get Meg Yaoub on the show since day one.
Yep.
And I'd been going through many different people to try and get him as a guest. Eventually, I had been speaking with his daughter when we finally agreed to the interview. All the logistics were being organized with his daughter. And we ended up doing the interview after he'd had a really bad fall.
Oh, okay.
And he was very weakened by that fall. And he's such a pro that he still did the interview. And I could feel that he wasn't well. I could feel he wasn't feeling well, but he gave it everything he had and he really spoke from the heart. And it was amazing. He could have easily said, I'm sorry, I'm not up to it. We'll have to reschedule. And he didn't, and he just went ahead with it. And I will never forget that. And it's a sign of a true professional.
I didn't
Very
know that
impressed.
that had happened, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you listen to the interview, I mean, I think you guys talked for more than an hour. He was very
Yeah.
open, and we went through a lot of stuff in detail, especially his work now with his charity. That's phenomenal. Yeah,
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And, he's not a young man. And, anything he would have said to me, I would have said, fine, we can reschedule, of
yeah.
course, anytime you want. But he went ahead with it. And I'll never forget that. I was so impressed by that.
All right, so we're coming to the end of the lightning round. So we've got those, complete the sentences for you. The first one is I have difficulty.
I have difficulty managing people. Going back to my least favorite activity, it's really not something I enjoy. And it's something that's bothering me more and more. And it's just something I try and avoid doing.
Okay. Taylor Swift is complete the sentence.
Taylor Swift is.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is someone who I know is extremely important in the musical universe, and I know a couple of her songs, but and not my generation, I mean, yeah, she's great. I love her. Whatever I hear of her, I love, but I wouldn't go and seek her out. Let's put it that way.
I think the headline of this episode is going to be Taylor Swift is not my generation. That's
No,
funny.
don't.
Okay, and then of course the last one is I get joy from.
I get joy from my family. But I also get joy from my dogs. My dogs are insane. I get joy from my family. Let me start with that one first. Especially my two boys. As they get older, my husband and I are prioritizing them in vacation time. So we would very often go on vacation with friends and their kids, and it would be like a lot of people. But now that they're getting older and they're like adults, we're choosing to spend at least once a year, go somewhere new
Mhm.
and do it together, the four of us. And it's especially with our eldest son away and our youngest son about to leave, these have become really important moments of connection, seeing each other again, and us discovering them as adults. And it's a really, really a joy to be with them at this stage. And then my dogs. So my dogs are our dogs are a huge part of our lives. We have a dog who is called Twix, who's about to turn 10. She's a dachshund, and she is obsessed with my husband, and I'm very jealous. And she puts him first, and he puts her first, and they have this whole little thing going. And then in January, we got a new dog, also a dachshund, a boy. and called Tokyo. And he has given Twix a new lease on life.
He interrupts recordings. I mean, it's the whole.
Exactly. It's really fun, and they've added a lot of life to our home, and they're a very big part of our family.
Great. Well, that's it. Congratulations on completing your very first lightning round. I'm sure there'll be more. But yeah, I mean, this is I think a good moment as well to say thank you to every single person that has heard the show, like right from day one, and is listening to us now as well. I mean, couldn't have done it without you guys, but yeah, well, congratulations, Malak, on 100.
Thank you, and to you too, and to the viewers and listeners. Stay tuned for our mini rebrand for the hundredth, because we're having a little bit of a sort of a fun little campaign for the 100th episode. So you're going to see some fun stuff on social media. We're redoing our banner on YouTube just to commemorate the 100th milestone. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it from us. Malak will be back with a new guest in a couple of weeks. So yeah, we'll see you again then.
Thanks, Chirag.